Hello, everybody. This is a short presentation from Birmingham Indivisible, and I just had some questions after going to the most recent town hall from Gary Palmer. There were a lot of miners, union worker, coal miners, that were there and were very uncertain about their future, were very upset, and kept questioning Representative Palmer about what he was going to do to help them. And that was very confusing to me because at the Hoover Town Hall, he seemed to be very supportive of the miners. So I wanted to find out what was happening there and what was going on. So for the purposes of this presentation, it begins in June of 2015. And at that time, Gary Palmer went to the EPA and demanded that the EPA, in considering all of their regulations, take into account the workers, the miners. And he talks about them being his constituents, that he's gone out and met them, that he says that he's heard their stories about how regulations have impacted their lives and their livelihoods. And he even states that the EPA should remember that these are all real people with families and they aren't statistics that don't matter. Now, 2 weeks later, in July of 2015, Walter Energy files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Walter Energy is in Alabama, and it is a very large coal producer. And when it files for Chapter 11, what that means is that it can restructure and reorganize its debts under court supervision. What's important to remember, though, is that Walter Energy is something it's called a pure play metallurgical coal producer. And that means that this coal is used in steel production, not for burning. So this isn't really impacted by Gary Palmer's statements about the EPA regulations. That's not what's happening here. That's not the reason why the company is losing money. As a matter of fact, they state here that one of the reasons that they give is the declining metallurgical coal environment, as well as the weight of the company's labor costs and legacy retiree obligations. So because of these and other factors, that they are filing for bankruptcy. And this is just important. We'll come back to these guys. Walter Energy is being advised through the bankruptcy by a company called Blackstone. So now we skip ahead to December 29th, end of the year 2015, and a federal bankruptcy judge allows Walter Energy to throw out its collective bargaining agreement and reject health and pension obligations to nearly 3,000 retired miners and their dependents. The lenders had refused to take on existing labor-related liabilities, according to the court filings. Remember that these people, at this point, they're not only losing their future retirement pensions, they're not only losing their health benefits, the ability, to take care of themselves in their old age, but they're also losing lost income because throughout their lives, they traded present-day dollars, they traded their day-to-day pay for having these benefits to look forward to in the future. So they've been stripped not only of their future, but also of all of those day-to-day dollars that they have given up. So then we move forward to April of 2016. So it's 4 months later, and Walter Energy is sold. And who did they sell to? Let's see. They were sold to a company called Warrior Met Coal. And Warrior Met Coal is a new business that is comprised of Walter Energy's creditors, one of which being Blackstone, which I mentioned before. So the creditors purchase the company after they have shed their obligations to the miners. So now we've moved ahead to March of this year. And what's going on now in March? Well, one thing that happens is similar processes have been happening not only at Walter Energy, but at different coal mines around the country. So what we have is across the country, 23,000 coal miners due to lose their benefits at the end of April. A few days later, 5 days later, March 7th, Warrior Met Coal, if you remember, they're the ones who bought Walter Energy. They're going to sell their company. They're going to have an IPO. It's just unbelievable to me that they were allowed to restructure, sell themselves back to the underwriters, and shed all their obligations to their retirees, and now they're going to file an IPO. Another thing about the IPO, the company itself doesn't get any of those proceeds. The money goes to the shareholders. So that's Blackstone again and some other places. So now we're at last week, April 18th and 20th, and now we see why the miners are at Gary Palmer's town hall. They're concerned. They're going to lose their livelihoods. They've lost their jobs possibly. They're going to lose their pension that they've been counting on. They're going to lose their health care. They can't make any plans about their future. They don't know if they're going to need to save their money to go to the doctor or if they can pay their energy bills. And so they show up at Palmer's town hall. And they want to know why Gary Palmer, hasn't signed H.R. 179. It shows here. So H.R. 179 is the Miners Protection Act, and Gary still hasn't signed it. It's signed by, it's got co-sponsors, 5 co-sponsors from Alabama, Brian, Rogers, Roby, Swell, and Brooks are all co-sponsors, but no Gary. For all that he claimed to want to protect his constituents, these miners, he's just not stepping up for them. And we know that it's not that he just doesn't co-sponsor bills, because he managed to be a co-sponsor on this piece of wonderful legislation that I'm sure we needed to redesignate Gravelly Point Park and rename it the Nancy Reagan Memorial Park. He was a co-signer for that. So why isn't he a co-signer for these miners? Why isn't he going to protect these people? And so that gets to my big question. I'm worried about the miners. I don't understand why he hasn't co-sponsored this bill. I cannot think of a reason why he hasn't. And I hate to have to try and shame my representatives into doing the right thing, but here we are. And so we're asking, who is Gary Palmer for? Is he for the big money interests the ones that are going to shift their debts so that they can shed the responsibilities to the people who have literally built the company on their backs. That's who he's for right now, when he's not a co-sponsor of H.R. 179. If he's for the miners, which we hope he will be, but he's running out of time quickly, then he will be a co-sponsor. And so what we're asking for people to do is to call Gary. He's got a Birmingham office, Oneonta, Clanton, DC. Call Gary and let him know that you want him to co-sponsor this bill and that you want him to put his money where his mouth is and talk to other people in Congress and get them to co-sponsor the bill. Talk to our senators, Shelby and Strange, who have also not co-sponsored the Senate version of this bill. Protect these people. Time is running out. April 30th is the deadline. Thank you.